Good evening. My name is Juvenal Acosta, and I'm the Dean of the Division of Humanities and Sciences. I'm going to be reading from my phone, and I apologize for that. Sometimes when I teach, I see students texting, and I approach them to say that they shouldn't text, and it turns out that they're not texting, they're taking notes on their phones. It drives me crazy. So it kind of drives me crazy to use my phone to read what I'm going to read, but I don't have access to a printer. I'm not in the program, and I remember that a couple of days ago I had a conversation with Gloria where she pointed out that I tend to micromanage too much. Believe me, I'm not going to micromanage your reading tonight. I'm just going to say a couple things. The first one is welcome to parents, friends, partners, students. This is the first of the World events, and of course they mark the culmination of our students' hard work to earn the degree of Masters of Fine Arts in Writing. About that, you'll have more in a few minutes from Gloria Frame, who is an expert at framing this into a beautiful context. The second thing I want to do, and the reason why I'm here, is I want to thank Gloria Frame, the chair of the program, at the end of her 3-year tenure as chair. This is Gloria's last year as leader of this fantastic program before she goes off to enjoy a sabbatical year. For those of you who don't know Gloria, I would like to say that she is a poet, a fiction writer, and an essayist who has published over a dozen volumes of very pertinent, well-crafted writing through a now very long career in the world of letters and ideas. These books demonstrate her natural talents as a wordsmith, as a storyteller, and as a politically enlightened intellectual. Gloria, whom I know for over 20 years now, is a living bridge who puts us in touch with some of the great elders of American poetry. She learned a lot from the two great Roberts, Creeley and Duncan. She learned from them the grammar of epiphany and truth, and from her friends and colleagues Leslie Scalapino, Anne Waldman, Lucia Berlin, she learned what it takes to claim a female voice in a world of men. Her scholarship is a bridge that unites a 19th century tradition of brave verse embodied by Whitman and Dickinson and distilled in her deep mind to be put at the service of these younger poets and writers who might not get the chance to encounter again such a ferociously talented teacher in front of them. As chair of this program, Gloria has brought to it excellence in taste and great academic rigor, and in the process she has left us a valuable legacy. Thank you, Gloria, for your courageous and passionate service, for the symbolic blood spilled on behalf of your colleagues and students. We owe you much, and we will miss you. We hope you won't be too busy to forget about us. I know that you will be writing and enjoying sabbatical, and we'll see you in about a year. Thank you very much, Gloria.
I didn't expect that. Thank you, Juvenal. Well, I don't need to tell you my name now, which is how I would begin. So I will cut to the chase and tell you that tonight we're going to hear readings from 8 MFA writing students. We're going to hear readings from their thesis projects. And our students are Brandon Dale, Grace Fondo, Adam Park, Anna Avery, Lindsay Lees, Logan Ellis, Caitlin Newman, and Luna Riley. And I first want to acknowledge something very important, which is their struggle. Their struggle to make the made thing their thesis. Our college has a long tradition of made things. And as writers, this is what we make. We make writing. So we make it from our imagination and from our hard work. So I welcome you, half of the class of 2017, please. And again, as Juvenal says, thank you all for coming tonight. Welcome home, alum. I see a few in the crowd, and I'm so happy to see you. And a special welcome to our newly admitted class of 2019. I see a couple of you in the crowd, too. So, yeah. And I don't know where she is because I haven't seen her recently, but she has been very busy in the studio. The special welcome is to Naomi Washer. Special thank you to Naomi for organizing the million details that have to do with Word World, this being her first year. This is the first cycle of all these details, and believe me, they do not cease. And she's done a fantastic job of making this evening happen. And next evening, the next Word World, which is next Friday night, is gonna be easier, right? I also want to thank my colleagues, brilliant writers, all of whom have worked with our students with the last 2 years tirelessly. Our students have come in as apprentices, and thank you, colleague writers, writer teachers, for coming tonight. Thoreau writes, "Things do not change, we do." We writers who teach in the MFA program see individual transformation. Every autumn, talented beginners arrive. In the 2 years, their talents metamorphose like characters out of Ovid. They become advanced apprentices with thesis manuscripts that represent the very best work they've done so far. They've put in their time and immense effort. They change, the work changes over time. Most of us, James Baldwin reminds us, are about as eager to be changed as if we were being born. And we go through our changes in a similar state of shock. But not artists. Change is a way of life for us. Class of 2017, after graduation, please take advantage of everything you learned while you were with us. Every writer you read, every writer you studied, every writer you befriended. Live fully and take the pulse of the universe. Think more of the verb to write. To write. That is your vocation. That is your chosen vocation. Not to be a writer, but to write. Verbs are very important, as we know. The MFA program is a temporary respite from a very fast-paced world that's unsympathetic to the pursuit of art. It's an opportunity, these 2 years, to find a community of like-minded people who validate you. The only test you get in 2 years is your stamina. But after you leave us, if you want a stable life, don't make art. Don't bother to write. We're among the immigrants and refugees of the world. Most people wish to be settled. It's only as far as they are unsettled that there is any hope for them, says Emerson. You will not settle. You cannot, for every writing is an unsettling blank page. Did anyone ask for you? You chose this for 2 years. You chose to devote yourself to art, and that is the promissory note, not to mention the loan papers you signed. Most of you signed those, right? Why did you choose to be in the company of makers like yourself for 2 years? You probably can't answer that question, really, for a long time, and you can't directly quantify it, as so much of our culture does with other professions and courses of study. To write, to live your life for and in the service of language is not a profession. It's akin to being called by the gods. It dares your will. And as the Talmud tells us, while the gods are calling, you have the will to answer your own questions. If you really have to write, then I welcome you to become the architects of your life, to make art out of deep need to create worlds. To live without a blueprint is not a safe existence. You will not find safety in writing. It requires so much inadvertent self-investigation along the way. Emily Dickinson addresses this in poem 832, in which she admonishes the 16th century Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto, who was looking for a passage to India via Nicaragua. Soto, explore thyself. Therein thyself shall find the undiscovered continent no settler had the mind. But there's not only the self. There are the laminated selves that constitute the writer and the person. The writer must have the dangerous, unsafe freedom to imagine other persona than who you think you are, to create any voice or identity needed in the work. If your person needs a trigger warning, listen to Toni Morrison, who says, the ability of writers to imagine what is not the self, to familiarize the strange and mystify the familiar, is the test of their power. So tonight, please welcome our 8 artists, and please join us for a reception in the Writers' Studio, 195 De Haro, after the reading. Thank you. I want to introduce our first reader, and that's how the order is going to go, is whomever is speaking will introduce the next reader. You told me to do this from the right-hand side, right? Is this? I don't never know if I'm doing it right. Oh, good, I'm doing it right. Okay. Brandon Dale is our first reader. Brandon is always stirring things up. I think we remember that from last year, his stir. But almost always in a good way. Both inside and outside the classroom, he is a torrent of fearless spirit, boundless inquiry, and much-needed perspective. It's my privilege to introduce a unique Southern voice, as charming as it is troublesome, Mr. Brandon Dale.
That was beautiful. Well, thank you. I would like to thank everybody for coming here today. Thank you. And I would also like to thank my papa. This is called Closed on Sunday. This is chapter 1. At 8:12 in the morning, Jim woke up in his truck with his .22 Ruger pistol in his lap and chunks of dried vomit on his cracked lips. He tasted sour bile and spat onto the steering wheel in a spray. "God damn it," he said, and quickly looked up. "I apologize, Lord, but how did I end up here?" It's where he needed to be, but holy hell. 3 empty bottles of Shinerbach and 2 blue and gold packs of Camel Turkish Royals lay scattered on the cloth passenger seat. "Lord, my life is shit. Did you really have to go to Shreveport? Really? Out of all places?" His head dropped and he whispered, "Why couldn't it have been mine?" Jim wanted to scream and shoot off the .22 round while he slammed his truck into the BP in a mess of fire. Instead, he blamed his best friend. "Damn it, Calvin. Why didn't he tell me earlier? I spent a whole year with that..." Bitch held on his tongue. Then all he imagined was her soft touch and that lavender-smelling hair. He quickly reminded himself that she was the one who dumped him. The wooden rectangular open sign taunted Jim from the front door of the BP gas station across the gravel road. The sign was painted navy blue, the trim white, and the letters red. It hung on a chain from the metal bar across the thick glass door. The bright letters OPEN shined through the fog like they was plugged in. Jim hadn't seen that sign in a week. Oh, excuse me. I have to show my pig. His godfather, Buck, sent him down to Orange Beach, Alabama to do some side work, investigating the cleanup crews of the oil spill, and part of that extended to taking down the open sign. The BP had become like a second home, one Jim didn't want, but it was what he had. It was a small white building built of old recycled bricks from an abandoned bank that had been vacant since the Depression. Each brick was worn and aged a rustic red, and even the thick layer of white paint couldn't hide the scars and the shallow craters. It had a silver tin roof, which is layered with leaves, and a few branches that blew in a storm. The fixed light on the side, a bare bulb, brightly showered white light above the bathroom. Several stacks of black milk crates, up to the waist high, lined the corner of the BP. Behind them, not 15 yards back, an old rotten wooden shed looked like it was slowly imploding, while the RC cola machine that sat adjacent rusted from a royal blue to a dirty red. Back on further, an empty, overgrown field with a few young pine trees popping up, spread out all the way to the tree line. The smell of magnolias blooming swirled in the low-hanging clouds that were stuck below the water oaks like the spring humidity. Clouds so low, they kissed the weeds and thorns that knotted up the field. Jim felt the weight of the pistol in his hand. He quickly lifted it and drew it to his right eye. Looking down the dark barrel, his stomach sank. "A goddamn year!" Jim's eyes shot up. "Sorry, Lord, I'm alone. My best friend." The cold metal sights on the gun's barrel brushed against the distinct, table-like bridge of his nose. He deeply breathed into his chest and took in the musty, stale stench of the cloth seats. Jim stuck his hand down in between his seat and the console, down with the forgotten, styrofoam-like french fries and small, dried mud clods. Skinny fingers, pink and spotted on the inside, fished out a pack of cigarettes. The pack had nothing in it but crunched up silver and gold foil. Jim wiped the vomit from his face and started the truck. The thick rectangular iPod scratch screen lit up. His flip phone vibrated in his jeans with 3 buzzes. The truck's Not That Bad speakers played The Who's Acid Queen. If your child ain't all he should be now. Jim used the pistol like a drumstick and mimicked Keith Moon's intro drum fill. This girl can put him right. I'll show him what he could be now. Jim sang, I am the gypsy, the acid queen. Pay before we start. The gypsy, I'm guaranteed to tear your soul apart. Get up. More. Enough. The drum fill routed the speakers, but Jim sat still and whispered, Jess. He closed his eyes and remembered her yellow dress, looking into her eyes for the first time and hearing Acid Queen from a truck's radio with its windows down. It was at that stupid party a year back when Jim drove down a gravel road past porch-lit trailers to a wooden shotgun house with peeling green paint. Jim compared the place to a hunting camp to the new owner, a friend of Calvin's, who then referred to it as his home. In the backyard, 3 of his friends from Natchez alternated between sips of Natty Light and drags off cigarettes. They stood in the back behind a mud hole, a fire pit, and a white wooden door on top of 2 patio chairs, the beer pong table. Loud truck speakers sang, I am the gypsy, the acid queen. Pay before we start. From the back of the house, Jess nudged the screen door open and stepped onto the small porch like a belle. Her blonde curls swung by her thin green eyes, and a swaying yellow dress bounced around her hips, below to her thighs. She faced Jim with a tiny, almost hovering smile and slipped along down the steps, skipped over the mud hole, and faded into the party. Jim stepped after her blindly, slipping into the sludge with his foot going forward, his other leg braced, and he was on the verge of a split. He loosened his knees and fell back onto his leg, lifting the other out of the mud and tumbling onto his back. When he sat upright, Jess stood giggling adjacent the mud hole with her arms pressed on her hips. Smooth. First time around mud, she said. You saw that? I'm sure everyone did. He shook her soft silk fingers, and she smiled a pretty row of teeth with one small tooth on the bottom sticking up and out. I'm Jess. I'm Jim. Is that your full name? What do you want? My whole name is Jim Lanou Belleville III. The third, huh? She raised her thin eyebrows. Where are you from? Natchez. But I just moved up with my godfather outside of St. Francisville. Run away from home? Jim felt his face drop pale white. Nah. My godfather's going to put me to work. Him and his old friend of his own a BP down there. Well, I suggest you get your GED. Jim's cheeks flushed red. Is that right? You'll need it if you ever plan on going to college. Don't you plan on going to college? A Natchez boy like you? Jim's smile flattened. I'll plan on it one day. Well, good for you. Where are you thinking about going? LSU. Ha! Yeah, right. And follow the generations of men that went there before me? So, you're from one of those families, huh? You sure there's not another reason you left home? I got out when I could. Mom was a drunk that stopped drinking and switched to prescription meds. You sure you got that GED? He reassured her that he graduated from a fine Catholic school called Cathedral, but he didn't give her the real reason why he left home. They kept on talking a while longer until Buck buzzed him, asking where he ran off to. Before he drove back to St. Francisville, him and Jess ended the night with a kiss. At least, that's how his night ended. Due to the recent confession from Calvin, Jim now knew how Jess did end that night. Just as the gypsy queen must do, you're gonna hit the road. Jim knew there wasn't no such thing as first love, but that didn't stop nothing. He opened his eyes to the fog daylight, scowled, and lifted the pistol back to his right eye. He stared down the long barrel. He clicked the safety from on to off. I don't deserve this life. I've been given more than I could have asked for, even when it was taken away. Buck was there. I can't burden him like this anymore, Lord. Please bless him. His finger wrapped around the Ruger's trigger on the verge of that tight squeeze, followed by the instant recoil and the expected feeling of relief. Jim stared forward and let a breath through his vomit-stained lips. The pistol's cold barrel wavered. He thought about driving out west, the cowboys, and never returning to Mississippi. A smile emerged on his face. His pocket shook while his phone beeped like a defective clock radio. He wrestled a flip phone from his jeans with his free hand and read the words, "Wake up," on the small exterior screen. Damn it, Buck. You might be the only one out here who cares about me. His flip phone pulsed and vibrated violently. Jim jumped. His skin crawled. His hand clenched. His fingers tightened. The trigger clicked, and the pistol popped. Thank you. And the pig is from Piggly Wiggly. If y'all don't know that, it's a grocery store. So I have the honor to press the arrow, and now I have another honor to talk in my regular voice. Hello, everybody. Hi. All right. So I'll be introducing Grace Fondeau. Grace is a poet, fiction, and hybrid writer. Her work explores biracial identity, loss, womanhood, the process of healing, and the ways we are shaped by our history. She is a co-founder of the Daughter's Tongue Coalition, has taught creative writing in East Oakland, and was a member of the Youth Speaks Collective, performing and facilitating poetry workshops around the Bay. Her poetry has been published in the Theories of Her, H-E-R capitalized, anthology, and the Oakland Review, and her flash fiction is forthcoming in Crack the Spine. Please welcome Grace Fondeau.
Thank you. Ooh. So before I begin, I just want to say a few quick thank yous. First, thank you to Tanya Foster and Opal Palmer-Adisa for your mentorship and support. I would not have made it through this program without you. Also, thank you to all of my friends and classmates that I've made while I've been here, especially my Daughter's Tongue co-founders, Deshara and Ella, and best friends. And also Caitlin. And everyone else, thank you guys so much. And also thank you to my family and friends for being here, all the way from Chicago. All right, so I'm gonna read some poems. Seam splitting. I used to pull my reflection apart, white from brown, so I could meet everyone I had always missed. I am two halves torn, melted together. My pulse sings like a stranger, a language I've forgotten. Tonight I crochet memory into a blanket. My ancestors wove canastas out of totora reeds, over, under, through. Tonight, my hands are not my own, over, under, through. Tonight, I pull myself apart. Abuelito's apartment. Abuelito's apartment smells like wet paint, folds into itself like a kaleidoscope. I've never seen him without a paintbrush, never seen his walls the same color. I met him in a mint green living room when I was 18. He was 80-something but couldn't remember. He asked my name and twirled his paintbrush like he was writing me into the sky. In all the years, I thought about my father, who he could be, what I was missing, what I would find if I ever traveled to Ecuador. I never imagined grandparents. My abuelito, small and crooked in a kaleidoscope apartment he never leaves, every day challenging the walls, the swollen walls with a new layer of paint. 3 weeks in Ecuador, I visit him 7 times. Introduce myself and watch him carve my name again into the air with his paintbrush. His apartment is the kind of quiet that reminds you it's there. He seems to like it that way. His kids bring him groceries, and my abuelita visits on Wednesdays and Sundays to cook. She moved out years before I met them, couldn't stand the fumes. The last time I see him, the living room is red. He hugs me like I'm someone he remembers, holds my face in a prayer of frail fingers, kisses my forehead like a grandfather. On my way out, he whispers to himself, "Y la preciosa, ¿quién es?" Mirror. I used to stare at my reflection in windows when nighttime turned them into mirrors. Stare until my features blurred and the glass showed me someone new. A girl in a country I had only visited in my dreams, but I went there so often it felt real, like the girl in the glass. One time, my stepmom caught me staring. I was ashamed, worried she would think I was vain, but I couldn't look away. I just looked at her reflection in the glass and then back at my own, wondering if she saw what I saw, a sister or a cousin, or maybe just a clearer iteration of me. Lake Atitlan. When my little sister turned 10, we traveled to Guatemala. 2 white moms and 2 Latina sisters, one from Ecuador, one from Guatemala. Ava touched her native soil for the first time in 9.5 years, the first time since we adopted her as a baby. And I got to hold her hand as she saw her features in every little girl selling bracelets, every woman patting tortillas between fast-clapping palms, every man steering speedboats and pickup trucks. Lake Atitlan is blue like the taste of missing, blue like a homeland you no longer recognize, blue like sand memories slipping through tight fingers. The other day, I found a picture of my family looking out at the lake. All of us sitting on a gray stone wall, Ava and my stepmom on the left, my mom and I on the right. In the middle, a long stretch of wall and a horizon of rippled water. It's the kind of picture you could tear in half and each side would still look complete. My little sister can see a piece of herself in every corner of a country that isn't hers anymore, and can somehow talk without blue on her tongue, without the taste of missing in her voice. I went to Ecuador for the first time when I was 15, and I've spent a lifetime missing a place I never felt the right to claim. Today, my sister is the anchor in the middle of a lesbian divorce, splitting her weeks between two households. I'm half a country away, pretending the photograph is still whole. She tells me about my stepmom's new house on the south side, how now she's finally in the same neighborhood as her friends and can walk to school with them. She tells me how my mom bought a new puppy, and now between the two households, she has 3 dogs. None of her friends have that many dogs. My sister is stronger than me. The jagged side of lovely, all beach glass and scraps of shell. She's teaching me how to reclaim broken pieces, name them something beautiful, something to be proud of. She's teaching me how to survive after the ripping. All right, so I just have 2 more poems. And funny story, a few years ago, I stopped writing poetry completely because I was really sick of writing about the same person, and it seemed that every single time I tried to write a poem, I wrote about him. And then I came here with the intention of writing fiction, and I found my way back to poetry. And luckily, I'm writing about a lot of new things, but every once in a while, he finds his way back into my poems, so these ones are those. But the perspective has changed, which I'm very grateful for. This one is called Baraka, which is the name of an Ethiopian restaurant I used to work at during college. Sade sings through the old speakers at my job. I am a broken house, and my body is a flood of sad songs, the kind you feel in your knees, belly, and throat, the kind that sometimes you wail, but most of the time you just choke on. I bring Dorowat and Begwat to a happy couple at table 32, then hide my tears behind the bar. When my boss finds me, his smile runs away from him. He only met you once. Afterwards, he said to me, "So that's why your heart is breaking." His Ethiopian accent cracking at heart like the bridge of a song. Today, he doesn't say anything, just looks at me for a long time like I imagine a father would. Then he pours me a tall glass of mango juice and changes the CD to Bob Marley. On his way back into the kitchen, he says over his shoulder, "No more Sade today." Heredity. You hate women just like your father and his father, so it runs in your blood. Worcestershire. 1. One time your father tried to teach me how to play chess, but he got frustrated, said I was too stupid. 2. When your parents divorced, your sisters sided with your mother in court and you with your father. Years later, your mom forgave you. You had 2 parents. Your sisters had 1. 3. When you found out I didn't know how to ride a bike, you blamed my mother. She stood against the kitchen window with the low sun behind her like a marigold crown. I watched her spine wilt with shame. She kept her face calm and sturdy the way some single moms do when men tell them how to mother. 4. When my mom returned from Ecuador, 20 and pregnant, she hadn't told anyone. She raced her moped to her best friend's house, lost treading on the final corner into the cul-de-sac, loose wheels, limbs, and belly like matches striking against an entire block of tar. In the hospital, she didn't know if her baby had survived, didn't know if she could accept the painkillers. 5. As a kid, I was all loose limbs and flame. had a permanent seat in the emergency waiting room for broken bones and split skin, tortured my mom with the memory of what she almost lost. 6. A few days after you blamed my mom in her own kitchen, you apologized. Showed up to our house on a bike with a shiny red helmet slung over your shoulder. Jogged up the porch steps to where I was sitting on the swing, perched the helmet on my head, and tilted my face up to kiss you. I was terrified. You held on to my hips while I pedaled, ran behind me, holding me steady and pushing me to go faster. Before we turned the corner, I looked back at my mom on the porch steps, folding into herself like a house on fire. Thank you. So now I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Adam Park. 10 years ago, Adam was freshly laid off from a job in construction and completely rudderless. He considers the last 2 years culminating in tonight's reading as nothing short of a miracle. The friendship of his colleagues here at CCA means more to him than they can ever know. Please welcome Adam.
Doesn't look it, but that's a longer walk than you would think. Real quickly before I get started, I just want to say my parents are here tonight. They're right here. And as I've been thinking about this crazy journey that's culminating right here at this podium now, I've been giving a lot of thought to where it all began. And I remembered that when I was a little kid, my bedtime was set at 8:30. But the deal was that if I wanted to stay up an extra half hour, I could, but only if I was reading. And now I'm on the cusp of a master's degree and halfway through a novel of my own, and I realized that this path began with a half hour every night when I was introduced to the world of literature. And I definitely didn't like all of my parents' rules, but that was one policy in the Park household that I'm very grateful for, so thank you guys. Just by way of setup, I'm going to be reading a very short chapter from my novel, The Devil's Own Day. The character we're going to be hearing from is very cerebral and up in his head, but also very troubled. He has this special ability to sing away the pain and fear that people experience at the moment of death. And when we pick up with him, he's had a certain important item inadvertently stolen from him by one of the other main characters, and he's trying to track it down. So this chapter's Floating. Oscar. No longer in Hollywood, but somewhere out on a high and distant plain, where only the whirling stars and the warm wind remind me that a thing called me exists at all. Good to be alone in the empty expanse, to not be hemmed in. It isn't like that other place, that other veracity that holds no truth at all. Nothing can hurt me here. Here, there is no Green Lawn Memorial Garden or Corcoran State Prison, no Vineland Adaptive Behavioral Scale or zero tolerance policy. There are no used rigs sodden with hepatitis C. There are no drugs at all. Nothing to contuse the skin and loosen the teeth. There is no Crenshaw, no Hollywood. There is no LA. I remove my shirt and stand arms outstretched, gazing up into the sky. The stars are shot through with sapphire and cobalt nebulae, and the galaxy bends back on itself like the serpent of some ancient cosmology, and I want to feel its soft celestial tongue skate over my skin. I want to be devoured by the thing, to slide up and out of the world, into an existence of pure being, an actuality without form. I draw air into my lungs in a great long rush. Exhale. My feet lift gently off the ground a few inches as my breath passes my pursed lips. Another deep breath, another exhalation, and I rise a bit further. And again. I pull the unspoiled air in through my nostrils. The night and sky take up more of what is Oscar. I exhale and become a little less Oscar. and I rise. Farther each time. 50 feet of ether separate me from the ground, then 100, then 200. I never make it all the way out into the heavens above, no matter how many times I try. But with each effort, I get just a little bit closer. I keep my head clear. A mind unencumbered by thought is critical to flight, to the cleansing I find soaring out in the sky. The stars and curtains of fire grow brighter as I rush upwards towards the promise of eternal repose and absolution from the sins that keep me tethered to that other place. I savor the apotheosis. I don't think of anything left behind in that other world. I don't think about a thing lost, a thing recently taken. I don't think about gunshots or blood. I don't think about another life ended by my own hands. And then I do. The night falls away below me, and I tumble down, down, down. The stars recede above, and as I cry for the want of a peace I might never know, I draw my hands to my neck and clutch at something that isn't there. A mouthful of exhaust and an asphalt zip. The grease trap and alley piss smell of a city. Zip, whoosh. Another car rips through the intersection. I feel the wind of it on my face, and I am suddenly back in Los Angeles, standing in the middle of MLK Boulevard, bare-chested, hands at my neck, grasping for a stone on a chain that is not there. My catatonia snapped off, brought to an end by rushing traffic. And now I'm back in that other reality, that unforgiving reality without beauty. I am weeping. Cars, all the time, turning lefts into crosswalks, burning through alleys, humming up the 110, the 405, the 10, dreamy buzzes in the night, groaning the city awake, always being always. Cars in the reddened sky, the marine inversion layer, the mountains, a buzz narrowed in close to the ears. The LA basin, a fortress filled with the static hum of cars all the time, 4.4 million of them. In Los Angeles, the cars often stop for pedestrians crossing in the middle of the street or against red lights, a marvel to visitors. But they don't stop for Oscar. They don't stop for phantoms. They just don't see me in the waning light. The city just doesn't see me in the waning light. God just never sees my nakedness in the waning light. I walk on for a time. I finger a crimson crust at the pocket of my jeans. What is it this time? It got there last night. Somehow. Somehow I did it again. Stayed alive. Always alive, never one of the others, never one of the soulless strays rabid in the street, the dead. It used to be a good thing, surviving, but I'm not so sure it's the blessing I once believed it to be. An overpass, traffic still thick, even at this hour. Sometimes kids throw cinder blocks onto cars from places high above. But I'm no kid, I'm no cinder block, I'm gravity. I am terminal velocity, 53 meters per second, but I'm no kid and never the traffic. Mama would hate for me to be nothing more than a crunch or a splat. But my whole life has been crunch and splat. Mama ate fire. My head's hung low. I push my way through alleys and parking lots half vacant. I plot my route like a good walker should. Give yourself the option of a right, left, straight at each intersection. The best route finishes with a right, left, straight option at the last intersection before your destination. I always practice this. I pull a crusted note with a name and an address from the pocket of my jeans. It was written by a dying man. I promised to exchange my help for the note, maybe even the man's life for it. But I knew there was no helping him. 3 rounds in the chest and stomach. There's no helping that. After the man gave the information, I asked his name. Clark, he answered. It won't be so bad if you float, Clark, I told him. Breathe in slow and breathe out just as slow. Float up and out. I laid my hand softly on Clark's chest and rubbed it in small, slow circles. I hummed a song with no name and with no words. I can feel it all of it, Clark had said, and then died. Now, a short time later, standing at the intersection of MLK and Arlington, I open the folded piece of paper. It reads, Ethan Miller, East 1915 and a half 18th Street, or Diamond Owl's Pawn. I memorize the note and burn it with a butane lighter. As I hold it in my hand, I watch the dried crimson blood turn to a russet, and I drop it on the ground where it all turns to ash. I don't want to carry it around anymore. It smells like CU 63.546, like a 1962 penny, before all the zinc. Thank you so much. Anna Avery writes critical theory and criticism with a punk ethos, which is the only fucking ethos to have. Avery questions everything, especially the very institutionalization of theory. Anna Avery moved to the Bay Area to be a poet and dove headfirst into the cold waters of the tender and militant poetry communities of the East Bay, and we're so lucky to have her. Anna Avery.
Thank you, Adam. I'm very fortunate. All three of my families are here. Special thanks to A.J. Howard for believing in this book all along. And thank you to my professors and the fearless oracles of my cohort. So this is a series of letters to my best friend, who's mad at me for leaving Texas. Dear brother, I want to show you all that I've been hiding all these years. For you know as well as I that 90% of the reality of being poor is denying that you are poor. I need you to know that my urges towards death started at a young age because I believed that I was not meant to live long. I want to start from the beginning. I was 7 years old and my mother had no cartilage in her hip or knee. I was waiting for her to tip over. Her cough rattled the whole house. Her lungs were full of phlegm from decades of tar, caked on by the stress of living. Her biggest ailment was that she was a proud woman. Admitting that she needed help walking, cleaning, or paying the bills was tough for her. Mama, you have to go to a doctor. But it was the same answer every time. What good is a doctor going to do me? All they're going to tell me is that I'm sick. Well, I know that I'm sick, and then it's going to cost me money. If my mother was never told directly that she was ill, then she would have no need to spend money on medicine or surgery. The word healing was rarely uttered in this house. Being sick and sucking it up, or rather, as my mother said, keeping a stiff upper lip, was the norm. Sick? Wait it out. Use a home remedy. Wait out as long as you can before going to the doctor, or else you'll be in more debt. And this became the unspoken logic of our household. My mother did this as procedure when I was a sick child. And I remember when I was 7, I caught something that I don't quite remember what it was, but what I do remember is that I expelled every fluid that I produced everywhere. And neither my grandmother or my mother took me to the hospital. It's too expensive, and it was hot outside. I'd scream and protest, but I didn't know what I was protesting. All I knew is that I was mad. I was mad at my mama for going to her secretary job all day and not doing what mamas are supposed to do. And I was taking it all out on my poor grandmother, screaming and screaming until I threw up. And I sincerely thought that God was punishing me for something. And I'd cry and I'd cry to Jesus. And I'd say I'd be good from now on. And I'd stop cussing. And Mama, Grandma, if you could just please help me to get better now so I can just drink water and get a full night's rest. Amen. But Grandma held me every night and kept whispering in my ear throughout the day and night, heating up lemon and water in our faded red pot. "Where were you? You were gone forever," as my classmate said as I sat down. Well, apparently, I guess 2 weeks is forever for a 7-year-old boy. I don't know, I was sick. My mom took me to the emergency room and I had a fever for 4 days. Said I had something and needed an IV and hooked it in my arm. It was crazy. They had all these needles on my wrists. And then he proceeded to shove his wrists in my face, exposing his tiny blue veins. Ew, stop it, that's nasty. I'm sure glad I didn't get a needle stuck in me. And from then on, 7-year-old me thought that I dodged a bullet. And if there was some sort of evil we didn't understand keeping me from going to the doctor, all I knew is that my family made the doctor into some sort of evil. And then it became a sort of game. Who calls the doctor first loses. But the problem started when my mama didn't see a therapist. She'd talk all about all sorts of problems, mainly ones involving my dad not paying some child support or drinking or something of the matter. And I'd give my mother back massages every night. I wanted her to just feel good. But even though I'd put forth all of my energy and receive a 10-minute good mood, my mama, and she'd have a 10-minute smile, it would just quickly fade in that straight line and then the vacuum would start all over again. I'm writing this to you because I want you to see that this was normal for me. This was my day-to-day life growing up, and we did not have the luxury of going to the doctor or paying for medicine on site. This was incomprehensible to us. Now, I know you must be thinking, but why didn't you go to the outreach patient center at Parkland? Well, honey, you see that the wait list was backed up for about 10 years, and if the authorities caught wind that I was living in what I was living in, I risked Child Protective Services coming to my house and whisking me away from my family. And even as a child, I knew that getting lost to the system was the worst possible thing that could happen to me because the percentage of foster children that suffer sexual abuse is unsufferable. And for those reasons, I did not tell you my living conditions. I mean, there was no need. It never came up. I have health insurance now. Bear with me, please. Thank you. I've told that to my professors many times. Dear brother, the afternoon that I found out my mother died in 2013, I laughed. I would never know the answer to the most important question of my life, but I guess that's life. The next day, I flew back to Dallas for the funeral with the help of my friend's family's air miles, and after the burial, I drove down 45 to 30 to East Grand, and I turned on Cameron Street and turned down Gurley and merged right onto Sarasota Circle Street. I drove past the pecan trees and the honeysuckle bushes. I knocked on the door of 1107 Sarasota Circle. The grand brick red house was built by my great-grandfather who immigrated from Germany in the 1940s and was a medical advisor to Truman and Eisenhower. There's a plaque dedicated to him at Southern Methodist University. The hand-painted stained glass windows shone with their dull luster, bags over the droopy eyes of the structure. The new owners had dug up the yucca plant that bloomed once every 3 years. The new owners had torn down the old garage structure in the back behind the flat cement driveway and built a new one. When I was a child, my great-grandfather's medical table was stored in that garage. My mother and my mother's mother and my grandfather's mother lived in that house, but it was just my grandmother and my great-grandmother who died in the house. A tall, pale man with unkempt black hair opened the door, and I explained to him that I grew up in this house, and I asked if I could just take a look around. But he said that I might be a threat to his family and that I should get off the property before he called the cops. I was 24, 120 pounds, and had on my Sunday school best. I could never go back to my childhood home. The owners do not believe I exist, and I think that the year 2008 was hard on everyone. But it's a funny thing when you are raised by an insane person. I know this might come off as overdramatic, but the fact of the matter is that my mother was legally insane, and I took care of her until I could not anymore, and I did this without institutional support, and I do not want pity. Because I realize that in writing this, I risk a bless your heart narrative. No, I give you my heart and insight because I was blessed from birth. My mother went through mania when I was 10 years old, and at the time I did not have the language for mania. The adjectives I used: fast, productive, and learning all the time, never following through, and fervent conversations, and listening to Berlitz tapes over and over again. I never thought there was anything wrong with it. But there is a reason, Luke. There is a reason that you are the first person I called after my mother died. I left a message saying, "Hey, dude, pick up. I'm part of the Dead Mothers Club now." But you are the only one who get the joke, because you are the only one who understands the heartbreak in my laughter. Thank you. Thank you. So I have the privilege to introduce someone I had a creative writing workshop with to teach creative writing, Lindsay Lease. In our time of stories that break down to formula, it's refreshing to encounter a narrative voice that truly dares. Lindsay Lease is a writer who shocks, awes, incites, and questions with a grace and severity that is not only truly rare, but truly novel, but imperative. Please welcome Lindsay Lease.
Falling apart at the seams. Yes, arrow, Anna. All right. Okay, so I'd like to begin by saying that I feel really fortunate to have spent my time at CCA, because there's no other place where aspiring writers, lovers of language, experimenters of form can come together and be as nerdy and impassioned about writing as an MFA program. The real world doesn't understand us. We are weirdos and outcasts. We study sentences and plunge into our subconscious for raw material to reveal self-truths. We deal with trauma and tragedy, politics and identity. And I feel so proud to be up here among other writers who are fearless in ways that don't feel brave, but rather authentic. Thank you to my mentors and my wonderful workshops, because without their help, what I'm about to share may have shocked, but I'm hoping it also awes. I'll be reading the opening of my thesis, The Willing, a dystopia set in Ovoidia, a place where every woman over the age of 16 has to have sex with any man who approaches them. This sacrifice creates a war and crime-free environment, and all women have lost the ability to experience sexual feeling, except for 15-year-old Gypsy Capone. Gypsy. 3 shrills blasted through the hidden speakers in the shiny ceiling tiles. A warning. 5 minutes later, another 3 shrills would announce that butts better be in chairs. Gypsy took her seat in the front row of the dark, stifling auditorium for her life science class. Due to the heat between the hours of 11 and 3 in the afternoon, the lights and air conditioning were turned off in the communities. Stagnant air lingered near an open oval window. Gypsy readjusted her denim shift smooth against her bare legs. The heat had only gotten worse that year. The whole country sizzled like a frying pan on a burner without a high point. Gypsy slid her right hand under her desk and stroked the round screws. She was in year 10 of transition school, her second to last year, but she had stopped paying attention when the madams began the boring task of preparing the girls for life as women in the communities. Life science involved learning domestic life hacks and mothering skills. Next to the whiteboard, a laminated poster of the head Gaji family tree depicted the original Gajis, 6 desultory faces with deep creases around their rage-filled eyes. As the generations progressed, the head Gajis began to look more their age, skin less ravaged, eyes less resentful. The current heads, with the open-ended parentheticals under their busts, were on the bottom row laughing, mouths splayed, and lips the shiniest shade of red. Above the poster, Gypsy noticed several new banners on the wall. The head Gajis didn't normally use cuss words to empower the women of Ovoidia. Put peace between your legs. A kinder, safer country, thanks to our cunts. Sex. Just say yes. Sweat moistened Gypsy's palms. She rubbed her hands down her chest to dry them off. Her boobs weren't the biggest in the class. They were close, though. She came from a big boob family. Grandma Goima's cleavage was a sight to behold, but most of the time, Gypsy wished Goima would just put him away. Gypsy's bust made her hips appear narrow and out of proportion with her legs, which were thin, undefined, and in need of a tan. A handful of glossy brochures circulated around the room. Gypsy turned the shiny pamphlet over in her hands and sighed at the cover image of her house. Well, not her house specifically, but rather a standard community's home. The drone's angle offered a bird's eye view of a headless snowman, and Gypsy imagined it melting into a staircase ribcage. The brochure was titled, "Welcome to the Communities Living the Ovoidian Dream." It wrinkled in Gypsy's grip. Madame Adele stood in front of the room. Her denim shift hung below her knees. She wore thick cotton socks pulled up below the hem of her shift, revealing a hedgehog strip of black leg hairs. Madame Adele dressed as though actively engaged in repelling men, the anti-Gaji. Gypsy wondered how well her efforts worked. Then she glanced at all the spoffs around her with their stoic expressions, pursed lips and suspicious eyes, practically carbon copies of Madame Adele's perennial sour face. As far as she knew, Madame Adele only had one daughter, Vegas, who had just turned 16 and gone straight to the city for higher education, a career, or if that failed, a baby. Gypsy tried to drown out Madame Adele's diligent explanation of the brochure for the new homes that would be available next year, when the girls in the class would make the transition into women and then mothers. The other girls ogled at the glossy images. They were holding their future in their hands, and it was the first time that anyone had seen the upgrades. Previous upgrades had included a massage chair and pinball machine. The most recent came with a tanning bed. Goima wasn't pleased. She missed out on that one. Gypsy raised her hand, but Madame Adele wasn't looking her direction. "What about if I want to live by myself?" she asked after Madame Adele had paused for questions. The class giggled. "Communities' homes are reserved for women with children. You know this, Gypsy." Madame Adele looked over her shoulder, unamused. "If you want to live alone, there's always the city. I'm sure that the new head Gajis have made it much nicer for all the new women they're expecting." That's not fair, though. "What if I can't get pregnant? There could be something wrong with my uterus. I don't know yet. And then I'll never be allowed a home in the communities? I'm just supposed to live in the city forever? Come now, Gypsy, Madame Adele wiped the sweat from her upper lip. The chances of that happening are very slim. Ovoidian women are extremely fertile. She relaxed her shoulders. But if that is the case, the city does provide housing for women, including barren women. There's really no need to be paranoid, though. I'm sure things won't resort to that. You'll have ample opportunities to get pregnant, and in most cases, it occurs much quicker than you intend. Gypsy wasn't concerned that getting pregnant was going to be a challenge. The communities were filled with young mothers, most with harp-shaped cheekbones and buttery skin, holding 2 babies on their narrow hips. She had entered the last year of her childhood and began to wonder how mature those girls really felt the first time they were approached. Then she thought of Sadie, and Madame Adele's voice faded to mute. On Monday, her older sister would turn 16 and become a woman. The blood in Gypsy's ears pulsed with each heavy pound of her heart. In Ovoidia, the day a girl transitions into a woman, she travels to the city alone for the first time. It wasn't ceremonious. Girls transitioned into their purpose every day, but Sadie wasn't just visiting the city. She was one of the new women moving there. And even though Gypsy wasn't supposed to be worried, she kept coming back to an image that made her stomach sick. A white town car, the driver pulling Sadie down a dark alley, a lifted shift, cold marble. She hadn't noticed her reverie until Madame Adele slapped a brochure against her palm and finished her lesson, as always, with the admonition, a woman's body is her most trivial sacrifice. You can love anyone as long as you serve your country. Thank you. Thank you. Up next, we have just a beautiful soul coming to the stage. His name is Logan Ellis, and his work has appeared. I'm sorry, Logan, it's the wrong one. His work has appeared in Inizagam, A Galaxy of Starfish, an anthology of modern surrealism, Fog Machine, Maudlin House, and elsewhere. His poems reveal deep worldly secrets, can levitate objects wirelessly, and occasionally cure the common cold. Thank you for listening to his call from the mountaintop and not its foot. Please welcome Logan Ellis.
Right. All right, gotta come clean. Last time I tried the whole poetry curing the common cold thing, it got kind of out of hand. I think people got even sicker, so now you know, if you're feeling bad, you can step out. We got healthcare physicians outside, hopefully not on dinner break. But yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much for coming, for hearing, for listening to us. I'm so glad to be part of this. I'm so glad to be part of CCA, my classmates, my mentors, professors, everybody. And even though my immediate family can't be here, I'm super glad I can feel them in the audience, everybody. And I'm especially glad that my girlfriend Maddie is here to support me. All right, so enough of that. Enough of that mushy stuff. Here we go. All right, I'll just sink into it. Let's see. Okay, this first poem, I'm reading poetry by the way, is called You and Me. I opened my chest so the forest inside could breathe. You swing from its canopy and stand before my sacrifice of teeth, blood, skin, all this jealous shade of you. Global in hand, I step back as you blink away my offering, and turn, sweep closer, push into the knife like stone to lake bed until my reflected face reflects me. How did your eyes disassemble mine the longer I stared? I could have screamed, could have collapsed, fallen asleep in this overwhelming. Voiceless, you embody the blade, intercede into my forest, spilling thorns so I couldn't follow barefoot, couldn't trace your footprints back inside. Hands reaching. A flock of shadows passed over the freeway and landed on my family tree's fanned fist. Stomachs full of crumb trails, feet contorted with brick and bone. Their feathers, I imagine, stain and leave in simultaneous orchestra. All right, I got way too many papers up here, honestly. Wow. Okay. Well, we're in the next phase of it. No, actually. All right, this one's called Dear Doppelganger, and it's actually a throwback to all my lookalikes. I think I'm coming home, Doppelganger. I'll come back colored collarbone shadow, disguised in the smell of smoke from a burning pawn shop. Don't worry, you'll know it's me by the knapsack of television dust over my shoulder. Proof of a new quiet streak. Tell me, are the streets still full of dogs chased backwards into their homes? Antenna haywire to smokestack horizon? Can you believe the malls of this place ever let me go? Can you believe I hesitated to lift my body out? Remember when I first hugged you quiet? After I sent you out to replace my comfort, you went missing, gone for so long, not even looking into the mirror could remind me what you look like. I found you at the forest wall, mosquitoes for skin. Our hands stuffed silence in our pockets as we walked home, and when I tried to speak, my heart went cold, stiff with anger, beating and beating to shake loose the frost. That's when I turned to you, to touch silence manifest. But not even then. Every time I write you, I'm untying a single strand of the rope cutting my wrists together. Dear Doppelganger, your presence has been getting back to me. Even this far out of state, strangers always take me aside. You look a lot like a boy I went to school with. Or, you remind me of a kid I taught years ago. Or, are you related to my granddaughter's boyfriend? The stories they tell me. Apparently, I've been Steph Curry and Tiger Woods. I've been a baby daddy who ran away with his child. I've been a polite kid who snapped one day, fanning a boy's teeth over asphalt like alabaster bruises. There's so many slivers of you to sweep up. Dear Doppelganger, your blood has turned to gemstone? Rough cut and glow red, Mom told me. How long have you been left broken in my room? Lonely curved divots of beautiful erosion inside. I thought you would have at least paced a trench into the floor. I thought you would have at least written me. Come clean. You don't want to be me anymore, do you? But don't wish to be anyone else. That's where the bear traps are sprung. Where mansions are shouldered by sinkholes, helplessness is a greedy privilege, an addiction no one can help out of the cellar. You could tell me how this ends. Remember how it would take care of you? These hands cleansing like a choir. I want to split you open, paintbrush my fingertips over your ligaments and arteries, rule of thumbnail defacing your teeth. It's about time I settled. Whatever was calling me has stopped. It's time I listened to the tea lights sobbing on Atlantic shores. Teach me your limbo, your listless gaze. I'll hold your heart in my mouth, keep it warm. I don't want my silence to mean I loved you, but never cared enough. I've learned what Eve was told. Find a fruit dark enough to show you its stars. All right, this one's called Dissecting McKee. Yes, okay, so the left side is no relation. The right side is his picture. And this person specifically is a man around 1940s who decided to pass for white, but unknowingly, at the same time, refusing to accept his grandfather's inheritance. And his grandfather was a colonel in the Civil War, Colonel McKee. Dissecting McKee. He was hospitalized because an awkward, unnamed shape reemerged in his throat. It had been sinking beneath each layer of himself since his first dry clean suit, until not even a flashlight into his olive skin would open its color. He lied in bed, hands deciphering the tumor, maybe a gift box, a button, the underside of an altar, trigger. In his dreams, it spoke like a bayonet, refining every bone. Don't tell them who you are. But his tongue couldn't help but spill its sharp hunger when men came to tell him the laryngeal cancer is where the dotted line of his granddaddy's inheritance has led them, convinced him the truth to blackness unlocks it. I'm black. Breathe my neck, snare the bullet in my muscle. I'll even fund Martin Luther King when he's decorated the movement I'll grow old supporting, with pride. I belong irreducibly to my time, believe me. But still, they need someone to vouch for him. Who knew you couldn't just say it? And so each night, he tried unzipping his throat. It was tough. Each attempt snagged, ripped its way to his clavicle's parabola until finally a chrome corner of the thing appeared. A safe. Each night, the testimony of his fingers picked it out, tearing away strip by strip. I am black. I am black. Blacker than my son's kidneys, than a bruise sailing Atlantic waters. What choice did I have? I am a slave of my own appearance. When the men came the next morning, he sat up, exhausted. His safe's door revealed like a jewel dug from blanched soil. That's when they leaned in, close, stuck their hands inside and scraped all the money from its corners. He was so hypnotized, upheaving. He didn't see there was no combination. No luck. All right, poem on the side. It is an experiment of a lot of things, so I'm just going to read it. Revisualization of the invisible man. Slowly, I will come back from what I was. A collapsed building that took its graffiti with it. Post-war shrapnel copycatting the dismemberment of helmet, of head, of mouth, of tongue, of vowel. Slowly, vein by vein, I'll admit that I'm sorry for letting you into my weakness. A lone barn swung open in a wild field. The difference between what is growing and the space in which it is growing. Slowly, we will do and redo. a stem rooted at the center of a stone, my skin a rug, and my teeth unsweeping the dust of a broken vase. But not the vase itself. Okay. We've got 2 more to read, and I'm done. I'll be done. I'll be out of here. All right, so this poem is called Camp. You thrushed inside me again. Quick palindrome to end the night. My throat, a spyglass for your dilated eye, squinting into grinning teeth like spit trails in the sky. You tore out each fingernail growing over my lungs, said, they always grow back. I'm not like you until I'm not like you. Must be code for, of course, I've answered flesh-colored questions campfire side. Night crawling from my pines to chew and chew awake my narcoleptic lips. Glass-struck heart thrum disguised by the sigh of motors on Lake Catherine behind us. Friendless, but popular. Mute. Say it again. You're my favorite one here. Why? You're my favorite. Say it until it has stained the white hot coast spilling from my mouth, smoldering into a display case around me. All right, last one. It's called Dark Doorway, Dark Ceiling, Dark Room, Adjusting. And it's for the 2 women that raised me. Cot, cold, empty. Hot, empty. Slab of mattress receding into night. The furnace in a small language non-stop. An oven in the trees keeping. Lipstick stuck to mirror. Cursive of my name, just my name, leaning like echoing pines outside the window. Mouth pursed, pressure red. And if it hurts to move. Slingshot bone. Mom's hair twisting into thick plastic spoons, light singed circumference and scuba hallway artery. Just watch. Just watch. Just watch my hand devolve down the ravine of grandmother's neck. I'm a kid again, mud-born and stickered, curling the shape of this dark between my fingers. No sound. The moon scratching across the deep before sleep. Thank you. All right, and now we have Caitlin Newman. It's my pleasure to introduce Caitlin Newman. Caitlin was 6 when she first put pen to paper. She wrote. She hasn't stopped. She is a living foundry of words, a shining light not only in this program, but in the lives of the friends she has made here. Our experience at CCA would be diminished if she weren't a part of it. Please welcome Caitlin Newman.
All right. Well, this is surreal. I just want to thank everybody for being here, and especially just every friend I've made here, every mentor has been just revolutionary, just life-changing. And I want to thank my boyfriend and my artist friends who are here too. Okay, so I'm going to read the intro to what will be a book soon. It's about being a sibling to someone with special needs. So, okay. This is an invitation. I'm inviting you over to my house, but I'm running late. So I'll meet you there. Feel free to go inside. Just ring the bell. Booger's home. You should feel special. I don't let just anyone in. I trust you. I trust that you'll respect her, and by that I mean, you know my little sister has autism, and she might get uncomfortable since she hasn't met you yet. Also, I should fair warn you about the tiny, aggressive, toothless Yorkie. That's Stanley. He will hate you, and I'm sorry, because there's nothing I can do about that. For 11 years, all we did was call him cute. He is what we made him. We are all what we made each other. You should see us together. We're a motley crew called McQuaid. But just go inside, don't worry. Booger can handle Stanley. Once you're in, she will whisk him into her arms at a slightly unnerving speed. But she'll break the tension after saying, "He hates me," in a complete surprise. You can tell by her expressive eyebrows. He might snap at her, and then she'll call him a biter. And even though this may make you anxious for her, it's fine. It's our version of normal. Part of me trusting you is believing that this won't be too weird for you. Nevertheless, I assume that you'll stand there, awkward, holding your own hands as you watch Stanley switch between growling and licking the inside of Rose's kiss. Eventually, she'll exclaim, "Aw, he likes me." Did you see what she did there? She doesn't, but I do. And I want you to see it too. That's what this is all about, really. An invitation for you to see what booger love means. If you were wondering, her real name is Rose. Only I call her Booger. I think it all started when she sneezed in her hair. But Rose was the cutest baby that I've ever seen. It was almost as if there was this extra bit of innocence in her eyes, a kind of perfect that didn't make sense then. Like her adorable quirks were a sign that we should have noticed earlier, but that's not important. What is important is that she was never and will never be defined by her diagnosis. Besides, at this point, there are so many variations of ASD, it might as well be called IDK. It wasn't until she grew up that we noticed anything different. Regardless, our mom, Lynn, dressed us all the same, adorned with matching oversized bows. Her 90s child style was on point. The three of us wore slightly different versions of the same trendy ensemble, connected by the same pattern or animal print. Mom's favorite was cheetah. She even went as far as to decorate our dining room from drapes to seat cushion with it, which made for a classic Christmas card. But all kidding aside, my mother already has a seat in heaven with her name on it for all the shit she puts up with. And that's not just from us. She's a 7th grade math teacher. And the only one who cooks, cleans, goes to work, takes care of Booger, goes to the gym, then to church, and comes home and grades papers. She does it all with a smile, for the most part. When the Pope finally recognizes her as a saint, I'll ask that she be called Saint Sweet Lynn of Brooklyn. Unless we're in trouble, we use nicknames in my house. And in this story, I'm using my version of everyone's name, including my own, because I remember things differently, vividly, finessed, or too true. Speaking of those who like to make up shit, Marie is the oldest sister. She never wanted any siblings, which is quite clear from her facial expression in all of our childhood photos. Now that we're adults, I cherish our close relationship, but I get to keep the fond memories of her past phases, like the time when she wanted to be a scientist. It was an honor and a privilege to watch her hack off her bangs because she thought that was how you got rid of them. It took 2 years for her to grow those back, and in the meantime, she performed the same experiment on my Barbies. And when their hair didn't grow back, she chopped off their heads to see what was inside. She became a surgeon. Dad's name is John. He's the only 62-year-old that I know that has a six-pack. He takes out his ADHD by rowing 10,000 meters in the basement and playing the drums if he feels anxious. I think staying busy is a side effect from working in Manhattan for 31 years. He even exercises after his commute home to Jersey. It's all about routine with him, and for Rose. So, Every night before bed, after he's done brushing her teeth and applying her zit cream, she picks out the tie that he will wear to work the next day. And then there's me, Elizabeth. Lizzie Fish, the middle child, the hot mess express, the captain of the struggle bus, the one who's always late. That's why I've kept you waiting. I've been on a road trip, and I'll tell you all about it. I left my darling, distracting family to change my life in California. When I made the decision, I accepted that it meant leaving, but Rose didn't. I feel better knowing that you're there with her, waiting in the threshold of my home with my dog and my booger. And I want to thank you for accepting my invitation to be here with us now. So, welcome. Thank you. So now I have the honor of welcoming Luna. Is Luna G. Riley an angel with an anxiety disorder or the devil dressed in goodwill? That's for her to know and for you to judge. She thanks CCA's incomparable teachers, colleagues, therapists, and haters for everything. Her accomplishments won't fit in this word limit. The girl writes poetry, and any indication of madness or success is in debt to the people she'll never forget. Please welcome Luna G. Riley.
Are you ready to be exorcised? How are you ready for a wild ride? Because you're going to need an aspirin after this. All right. So, before beginning, I'd like to thank my mentors, my friends, my family, and my partner for supporting my creative trajectory to this end. Specifically, Denise Newman, Donna de la Perriere, Dodie Bellamy, Kevin Killian, and Joseph Leese. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for everything. Moving forward, some notes on my work. One, I'm a New Yorker, which means that I speak fast and I speak loudly, and I have no intention of slowing down or being quiet. Thank you. Two, my work is about madness and death, which are inevitable. We all know that. And three, thank you for sharing this experience with me. I have every intention of fulfilling the time allotted to me, and we will now begin. Cremation chamber. 1, throw the past in to a furnace. 2, turn it on. Astral projection. Viscera trembling, surrender dispatch from known body, sandpaper repeating, gravel hiss, ear canal, blood from the shell, and echo past beating. Survive this. Survive again. Grind a 12 molar millstone shut. I dream tombstone. I wombstone sandstone. Skin scream separation. Please leave, but the words don't escape. Please leave. Beat down the memory. Flatten this into currency. Stopwatch. Magic marker. Eulogy for a grave dancer. Dissemble the child. Considering this metal in bed, the silver flesh, glinting hideous grins, flash mocking mirror, teeth gnash, skin to steel, glare, gray eyes stare on gray blade's edge, trembling there, precarious. Capillary flushed precipice, shattered treasure smiles, scattered in bent fragments, prismatic gashes gush from the dazzling peak, plunge. Plunge, plunge, the dappled duvet wounded sings, goose feather aura, a drywall mandorla, rupturing vermilion against first frost under magnifying lens, bell jar, snow globe encompassing quiet, and silver, and bent, light today, the wax figure is melting. Life, death. Carving knife doesn't care. Steel cuts either way, a blade to the face. Map the quavering chin and slowly up again. Grimace, flesh. Spit mask isn't special. We all look pretty similar with our skin peeled back. Just surface and elegant illusion. Explanation. What machinery, what blood, what violence. Another impulse to reach for glistening edges, to just slice away somebody's face until you touch the only truth. You are staring through tangled capillaries, mangled dreaming and ancestral deceit, slideshow memory and arteries freeing waste to bowels so we shit out what doesn't work for us. Only the refuse has a chance of surviving beyond the body, this damned knife. What remains? Today we talked of burials. You, your burning body, me, a tree. Roots sheathed in skin, reaching through, digest what remains of memory. You, your burning body, a sheath, let me rest indefinitely. Before fire ash billow, before eyes roll back, an ending, beginning. Evaporate. We buried our blood clot under the hospital. It had a heartbeat and your face. We lost our blood cloud in a crosswalk paving MacArthur and Piedmont. Its laughter bubbles in a waste bin. Its smile is lost to a dumpster fire. Tiny ears are scattered, hearing gauze, sharps. Marble eyes melt with fingers. Your thumb, my pointer. Its nose is your mother's. The chin sculpted by my father. No wails, no death rattles from yawning trash heap drowned out by delivery wards and cemeteries. Our rusted bloodstains just blushing for bleaching, not mourning, not alive, cry in private knowing heavy shame. That pain is a mistake. That blood clot was washed away. Blood clouds evaporate. Time and dying. Not pure, 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 no feeling indivisible, no one thing whole. The body is stained, iridescence fades. You don't understand the snake that lies in wait. Boo hiss, stay a while. The voice is familiar. I can't see the face to which it belongs, but attempting to reassemble jigsaw memory, the pieces become a stairwell steep and rickety. I fall from step to stoop. I bang my head. I cry out. Blood. Blood everywhere. Laminate, lacquered, or polished wood. No matter the mess cannot be contained on such an occasion. My hand grasps at the wound and attempt to close gap, gushing forth, but the red seeps through fingers and I shake at the foot of the staircase. No good. 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 No good can come of this as I sink into the slate, as I sink into the sediment, as I become one with the concrete. The ground is consuming my body. The ground is exhuming my body, stained with the reds and pinks and peonies of memory, of the cause for the fall of the you and I, of the once was but not anymore, of the here again, of the never again, of the words of a bed, of a face, recognizing the sea salt, agonizing of the then into now, of the plasma spill, the blood outlining my body's crime scene, my child, snow angel, my daydream repeats, and I am still. 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 He says this is true, but would he stay awake while I try to climb back up the stairs and I keep slipping on the snake underfoot? Not pure, no good, no end to come of this. Just falling and climbing back up like the Atlas. Finally understood. A question in this trying. No object in gaining. Just time. Time and dying. Astray. What gruesome guiding principles have led me here? I threw the bottle in the street and heard it shatter. I traced his face with the backs of my fingers. I stood under the light bulb with 2 palms up. Prayer hands read lips. Tough teeth for a neck. Temple. This place, the taste of hymn, blood iron, a scabbing. Consider the wound, calloused at the roof. Lip quiver, blister, the heat moisture. What ornate moldings decorate this ceiling? A flesh canopy built, little rusting fingers know the suffering, the echo of the wail, reverberating, stained glass uvula tongue, tendon shreds against window panes and splintered dust, the body church, this broken cathedral. He said he likes it this way.
Knowing virgin consequence, comprehend electric fence, that dirt under my nails always finds its way back. Once immaculate, these hands are damned. Grave digging after David Shapiro. Sarcophagus for the thing you told me, sarcophagus for my body in the dark. Moon shining, treacherous, carcass, remorseful, bloating, apologetic, choked on cotton, buried you with me. Second coming. His passing was a resurrection. The dead before him rise in one. Told him, please does not mean yes. He didn't listen, still inside me, buried, a saw. His coming was a resurrection. The dead before him rise in one. Future chill chime the cemetery bell, a body blind to itself, a cry deaf to its call, a graveyard full, and not at all. Still singing. I dissolve, steady dying, different versions, each quieter than the first, kind of purring or a kind of pouring into space, a kind of crying. I'm finding that bones eroding are just a way of knowing, a way of touching depth, death. I am a baby burning now, cooling, collapsing after the expense, dwarf star like I am disappearing all over again. Cosmic dust glittering and littering skin ash, Pompeii remembering I'm only sightseeing, flesh tourist, idle rubbernecking, want to flash forward pending soon suffering, lie living in utero's drift contorting and kick the womb walls, this conscious membrane, carbon trash child, can't forget doing badly, fucking up, becoming sand, but still singing. Compost. Inside of a hearse, looking out, no one attended my funeral, and now we're headed to the burial, we as in my brother, the driver, and me. A pale cadaver humming to myself quietly, he will inter my bones laid out with care, one tear to water driftwood tomb as I go down slowly. The soil will finally cover me, and my eyes will stay shut, and I will rest, blooming 80 lilies from teeth crumbling inside, rotting shipwreck, pine, thistles, nettle, tear free from flesh. Carrion sprouts cacti, and my roadkill body gives itself to crocus and pansy. I rest at last, becoming what I wanted to, not human, a garden. Thank you.
Thank you all, gardens. Come and join us at our garden at 195 Big Arrow for a reception. Drinks, merriment. Thank you.